What's happening, everybody? It is Trey here. I'm joined again by my dad, Sean. And today, on Reactions to the Classics, we are up to Led Zeppelin IV in our journey of going through Led Zeppelin's discography. Just like many of our other Led Zeppelin reviews, we weren't familiar with this record. The only song I was familiar with was Stairway to Heaven, which was my introduction to Led Zeppelin. But besides that, this is all a new experience. And if this is your first time joining us, y'all, here at Reactions to the Classics, we take a look back at some of the most classic records of all time and do a detailed track-by-track review. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And if you would like to link up with us more, we have a link to our Facebook group down below, as well as our Patreon if you'd like to support us and get some perks yourself. All that to say, let's dive into some quick facts on this record.
All right, Joe, this is our fourth studio album. It's actually untitled, even though it's known as Led Zeppelin IV. Recorded between December 1970 and February 1971, as with the other three offerings, Jimmy Page served as the producer. This thing is number 69 on the Rolling Stones top 500 albums of all time. It's their best-selling album, sold over 37 million copies worldwide. One of the best-selling albums in the US, as it's tied for third highest certified album, 23 times platinum. The critics have regularly placed it among the best albums of all time. It hit number one in the UK, spent 90 weeks on the charts there, and hit number 2 on the US charts. The album came about following their tour in October of 1970 for Led Zeppelin III. They wanted to get away from everything, just like they did before the third album was recorded. They went to Bron Arar, which is a country house in Wales, doesn't have any electricity, doesn't have anything. They wrote a lot of Led Zeppelin III there. They stayed there for about a month, and then they went to Headley Grange, which is another country house, but it actually has running water and electricity, Trey. And they went there to lay down a lot of this stuff. Page said later on they needed a place where they could get away, but walk around, have tea, a little nicer place, but they didn't want to be in the studio. So because of being at Headley Grange, they had to use the Rolling Stones mobile studio, and they actually borrowed the engineer from the Rolling Stones, Andy Johns, who had just finished Sticky Fingers, which, shameless plug, look for that review. We reviewed that not very long ago. Wonderful album.
And Page decided that the album was not going to have a title or a bunch of, intricate artwork like some of their previous albums did. Instead, each member came up with a symbol. They put that on the album's inner sleeve. The record company was not too thrilled with this idea. Led Zeppelin held the master tapes back until the record company agreed. That'll take us to our opening track, Black Dog. This is ranked 300th on Rolling Stone's top 500 songs of all time. And as is common with Zepp, we start off with a great hard rocking number. This has a call and response with where Plant will say something just a cappella, and then the instruments will come in. That was inspired by Fleetwood Mac's 1969 song, Oh Well.
The song is actually about Plant's failed relationship with a gold digger. Jones is credited with writing the main riff, and he was inspired by Muddy Waters' controversial 1968 album Electric Mud, and he added a winding riff and complex rhythm changes in there. Like most of Zepp's stuff that's hard hitting, the instrumental work is tremendous on this. It's middle of the road for me on this album. There's only 8 tracks and some of them are way up here, but it's a good song, a really good way to begin.
No, I'd agree with you. I think they just came out hard rock, and always a wise idea to just kind of get the listener pumped up and ready for what's going ahead. Again, interesting concept with this woman's taking all his money. She's saying that to her friend she's going to be a star, and at the end, Plant's just like, you know what? A big-legged woman ain't got no soul. And
I know, it's so funny,
it goes with it. So a good way to start the record, and then that'll take us into another rock and roller. Rock and roll.
No pun intended, right?
And this, it gets back to just the rock and roll roots, and the lyrics kind of reflect the desire to want to go back to almost that 50s rock and roll sound.
They were having writer's block, and they were just doing a jam session. This was not written down, and they kind of just came up with this thing.
Yeah, during the jam session, Bonham started doing a drum fill from a Little Richard song, and then Page came in with almost a Chuck Berry-like riff, and then they just started jamming. 15 minutes later, the foundation of the song was put together, and we got a good rock and roll track. I enjoyed it. Thought the cymbals from Bonham especially were the standout, and it's a standout track for me on this on this great record.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Which brings us to the Battle of Evermore, which is unique in the fact that it's a duet with Plant and Sandy Denny.
One of the singers for Fairport Convention, a huge folk group in the 60s, and this definitely has a folk vibe to it. You have the acoustic guitars. I feel this could have fit on the second side of Led Zeppelin III.
Right, that's good, yeah.
In the acoustic portion, and you also have the mandolin in there, which Page said he was playing around with the mandolin in studio, never really experimented with it before. This was my least favorite track. It wasn't bad. The folkier instrumentation didn't hit for me like Led Zeppelin III did in the acoustic side.
And because of the Lord of the Rings vibe, it has almost a Celtic sound to it, and that's where we're getting this folk stuff. It's fine for me. I guess it's my least favorite. There are a few songs in here that is kind of even. This is one of them. It's kind of got where Plant is the narrator and Denny is kind of the town crier.
Yeah.
When you kind of listen to the song, and it's the only time there was ever a guest vocalist on a Led Zeppelin song, so that makes it a big deal. And they gave her one of her own symbols on the album.
That's right. They gave her like 3 triangles on the back, so kind of a cool thing.
Well, Trey, now we're up to Stairway to Heaven, an iconic song, number 31 in the Rolling Stones top 500 songs of all time. I know the song as far as know it exists. I'd never heard it before I even get the comments below. I was born in 1971. We didn't have Spotify or Apple Music. You're not going out and buying classic albums, so I'd actually never really heard this song. Obviously, it's tremendous. It was composed by Page and Plant. It was never released as a single, but it was the most requested song on FM radio in the United States in the 1970s. And it has 3 major sections. Each one progressively increases in tempo and volume. It begins in this slow tempo. There's some acoustic in there before introducing electric instruments. Drums don't enter until 4:18, and the final section just starts going, man. It's up-tempo, hard rock arrangement highlighted by Page's intricate guitar, considered by many to be one of the greatest or the greatest guitar solo of all time.
Yeah, and Page actually recorded 3 different solos. He was agonizing, which one am I going to keep?
Which tells us how good they must have been.
Yeah, exactly. And this was rated by a Guitar World magazine as the greatest guitar solo of all time. And as you mentioned, they never released this as a single, even after being pressured to in 72 and 73. Reason being, they, one, didn't want to edit down an 8-minute long track and mess with the integrity of the song, and 2, they figured that since it wasn't released as a single, people would go out and buy the album. This is the first ever Led Zeppelin song I heard a few years back. Honestly, it is one of my favorite songs of all time. And I just think that it just starts off so, it just takes you on a roller coaster, man.
You talk about guys at the peak of their powers all together. Yeah, it is just an unreal ride.
Like, you get the recorders and you start off all mellow, talking about a woman who is very materialistic, you know, trying to buy her way to heaven in a sense. That's one interpretation. And then when those drums come in, as you mentioned, around the 4-minute mark, then we just get rocking a little bit, and then 6-minute mark, we get that Page guitar solo, one of the best I've ever heard. And towards the end, then Plant's vocals just start belting out, talking about you gotta be a rock and not to roll. The lyrics do leave room to interpretation.
They do.
There are 2 paths you can go on. There's still time to change the road you're on, even if you're on a bad path. You can still go, you know, on your way to heaven. Essentially, that's, well, you know, the interpretation I have for the song, and I'm sure there are many others that y'all have below. But all that to say, man, this is definitely my favorite Zeppelin song.
Yeah, it's mine too. Now we start off the B-side with Misty Mountain Hop, another Tolkien. It's based on The Hobbit, they think. Misty Mountains and The Hobbit. It's actually written about an arrest that happened at Hyde Park that Plant was actually at. It was a legalized marijuana rally, and he wrote this song as kind of a protest of that.
Instrumentally, I like it starts with that electric piano going in, very unique from the rest of the album. A nice sonic soundscape that they are bringing forth, and as you mentioned, the lyrics really just reflect Plant's desire for a better society. I mean, it's a theme I think a lot of people can get behind, and this one, it took a little bit, but it did grow on me in subsequent listens, and at the end of the day, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well, and that takes us right into 4 Sticks.
Yeah, and this was the most difficult song to record, the band said, because Bonham plays that drum pattern with 4 sticks. He's got 2 drumsticks in each hand.
We played this song one time live. ever. So that tells you the difficulty of it. It's
Yeah.
basically a song about he's leaving her, he's trying to find a way to break up with her. For me, it's a good track, man. It's right there with a lot of the others. It's not a bad track for me on here.
No.
There's just a few tracks that are exceptional, and this
Yeah.
is just another good track.
I'd agree with you. I mean, hence the title name. I think Bonham is the highlight dude here.
Of course, yeah, the drumming is off the chart.
Just such power throughout this entire record, and you know, he's displayed that since day one with Zepp, and he displays that here. And yeah, talking as you said about wanting to leave this pesky woman, and then we go back into a more stripped back version, a song that I know you really enjoy, Going to California.
It was written by Page and Plant. It's a ballad, a lot of acoustic in there. Maybe Plant, for me, best vocal performance is just the sound of his voice. The tone is tremendous. They're leaving home. We're going to assume London. They're going to California hopefully to find their true love. It also mentions earthquakes. It was said to be written somewhat about Joni Mitchell, who both Plant and Page were friends with.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Dad. Like, this was, for me as well, one of Plant's, maybe his best vocal performance. He's had some fantastic ones.
He has.
With the acoustic backing of this, it just made for one of their best acoustic tracks for me. Beautiful song that stood out on the B-side for being different from, you know, just some of the harder rockers that we've had previously. And for that, it is a standout track for me, one that I'm going to be going back to, you know, years down the line.
Yeah, this one and Stairway I just spun a ton of times. I mean, I spun the whole album, but these two I kept going back to. And that brings us to the final song, Trey. And you guys better watch out if you're in a huge rainstorm, because when the levee breaks, you're going to be in trouble.
Oh my goodness. This, not only my second favorite track on the album, but my second favorite Led Zeppelin song. It has that heavy sound because the guys are slowed down. Everybody but Plant is slowed down, which gives you that really heavy, punchy vibe to it. And then Plant's vocals are sung at a regular speed. The drumming, they put Bonham's kit at the bottom of the basement at Headley Grange, and then they recorded him with the mics kind of up on the staircase. So that's how you get that distant sound here a little bit.
This was first recorded in 1929 by Kansas Joe McCoy and Memphis Minnie. And Memphis Minnie wrote it, so Plant took it and wrote some different lyrics and used some of her, so it's credited to all four members of Zepp and Memphis Minnie. And it's about the upheaval caused by the 1927 Mississippi River flood. The subject of the song is going to have to leave because there's no work, because everything's flooded, everything's gone, and go to Chicago, but he can't take his girl with him. So that brings us to our favorite tracks. We've kind of already shared them for you.
Yeah, I mean, Stairway would be right up there with my favorite tracks of all time. When the Levee Breaks, Going to California, those were the three that really just stood out to me on this record.
I'll echo that. Our 2 and 3 are flipped a little bit, but hey, you can't lose either way. And that brings us to our overall grade. And Trey, you know this is the 4th album we've done. We've done them in order. I really liked Led Zeppelin 3. That was my favorite Zepp album. This one has now surpassed it. It is a tremendous offering. All these years later, holds right up to there. And because of that, I'm going to give it a 9.25.
I love it, man. I'm going to be right in that wheelhouse with you. This is definitely their best record, and I think it's going to be tough for them to top it. Who knows? I'm going to be in that 9.25, 9.5 range as well. I just think it's a fantastic record that doesn't, as you said, it doesn't have a bad track.
No, it does not. It's very consistent.
With only 8 tracks, there's no filler in this either, so there's not a song where you get to and you're just like, oh, I'm going to skip. It definitely lived up to the hype. I know a lot of people were you know, talking it up to us, so I'm glad we were able to enjoy it as you all did. And let us know what you think of Led Zeppelin IV down below in the comments. Your favorite track, where would you rank it in their catalog? As always, Dad, appreciate the research. We got Houses of Holy coming up next, and be sure to hit that big red subscribe button, y'all. We upload twice a week in a variety of genres. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching, happy listening, and we will see you next time.